Welcome back to the Jim Jackson Show. As you can see, not in studio, on location once again. I happen to be in Portland, Oregon with the Los Angeles Clippers. We have a game tonight. And it'd be like this a little bit through the rest of January and also February because of the game schedule. I'll be out and about and not in studio, but you can follow us on IG at Jim Jackson Show. Also, any place that you download your favorite podcast, Spotify, you can get it at Apple, anywhere you download your podcast. Also, youtube.com, Rich Eisen Show. Don't forget that as well. Live shots there. Hey, listen, it's been a trying week. I mean, basketball and sports have been kind of pushed to the back a little bit, especially for us California residents because of the fires that have taken place over the past week and still kind of going on. A lot of people have lost their homes, their memories. They lost family members, friends during this time. The NBA has canceled a couple games last weekend with the Clippers and with the Lakers. I know that the Los Angeles Rams had to be relocated. Their game was in Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, for Monday Night Football, which should be the case. So when I started looking at the aspects of this show, I thought about basketball and what it was about and talking about it. But to me, that was a secondary conversation that I didn't really want to have on this particular show because the impact of which the fires have. I live in Southern California and I see it every day. Again, I'm not directly impacted with regard to losing everything, but I have people who have lost everything or partially everything. There are people that I know that are going to be displaced for an exorbitant amount of time and not knowing if they're going to be able to actually go back to that neighborhood that they were from and actually rebuild at the cost that is conducive to their current income and live a life that they're accustomed to living. And that's the challenge when you have this kind of destruction. Yes, you can kind of rebuild in certain aspects, but the mental aspect of what these people have to deal with of losing everything and starting over, in particular when your income levels are a little bit lower, and now the price to rebuild exceeds what the actual market value is for your home insurance-wise and what you can get back. That's a tough decision. So I thought it'd be best that I bring a good friend of mine on today to kind of discuss the tragic events, what happened, how could it maybe have been not prevented, but the scope of work to lessen the damage. Is there something that could have been done? But then also the rebuild process, because you have the rebuild process that's a lot different in the Pacific Palisades or Hollywood Hills as it is compared to a different moderate, different income of Altadena, California too. So Dr. Isadore Hall III, I call him Izzy, will join me in the show today. He's a former 35th area councilman, representative, assemblyman. He was part of the California Senate, appointed by Governor Newsom, has also worked with the current mayor, Karen Bass. So he has a keen insight onto the inner workings of local government, state government, and can provide a little context of the processes in which they had to respond to the fire and then moving forward on the actual rehabilitation and rebuild of these communities. As promised, I got my good friend, Dr. Isadore Hall III joining me. And it's the first time I think I called you Doc. I think that's right. I think that's the first time I had the official title, but man, how are you doing?
It's the first
Doc.
time you call me by my government name, too.
Right. I know, right? It's usually Izzy.
Right.
When I see you out at the Clipper game or at Grand Havana Room grabbing a quick cigar. But, man, listen, how are you doing, man? I know everything is going on, and we want to get into – I wanted to make this a little different podcast this week because of everything that's going on in L.A., in particular in the minority communities and how it's impacted by the fires. And I thought no one else could better articulate kind of the rebuilding process, what has happened, than my good friend, Dr. Isadore Hall, of course. But how you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. And Jimmy, thank you so much for this platform to be able to get the word out and discuss some of the heartfelt, gut-wrenching things that are happening, the devastating things that are happening in our community. Obviously, we all are impacted by so much of this. And so I think it's just, we all are just wrapping our heads around the reality of what's going on. And so it's a heavy burden on all of us. We all are impacted either directly or indirectly. And so as much work as, as we can do to try to get the word out, to send prayers and well wishes and assistance out to others, the better off we'll be as a city.
Well, and as a backdrop too for our audience too, listening and watching, want to give them kind of a history from your background, because I think that's very important as we get into this conversation. Sure. That you have more intimate knowledge into the inner workings of government. Absolutely. On the rebuilding process. So I think it's very important that you kind of walk through your background just a little bit so that our audience understands, once we get into kind of the subject matter, how much knowledge and how ingrained you are to the system itself as far as California and the local government.
Be happy to do so. So, I started off early on in public service in a local level, from the president of the school board, education, then to the city council of Compton as the vice mayor of the city of Compton, elected there, then went to the California state legislature as the number 3 in charge as assistant speaker of the House for the California State Assembly under Karen Bass. And Karen Bass, who's now mayor, was speaker of the House. So I was assistant speaker pro tem of the California state legislature at a time when Governor Schwarzenegger was there, and we had massive cutoffs and budget cuts, and the city was virtually in collapse, and we had to the state was in collapse, economic collapse, real estate collapse, and we had to rebuild the state of California to bring it back from the brink of destruction. And so I was part of that administration to help bring and restore California. And then from there, I went on to the California State Senate as a leader in the California State Senate, and now, of course, still working in the administration and also on a local level trying to restore our local governments and economic development. And some of the key things that I worked on in local government and on the state level was economic development, housing development, and making whole communities that have been disenfranchised and taken advantage of. And so this is in the toolbox of the work that I have been doing for a lifetime.
See, and that's very important, because the housing, the redevelopment part, the sustainability part with regards to neighborhoods and less fortunate areas, it will be something that we're going to touch on, especially when we talk about Altadena, which is a lot different from the Palisades. Okay. So It's two different buckets, and I want to go here. And because you have intimate knowledge of working with, of course, the Governor Gavin Newsom, who appointed you first, right, in 2017. Right. Okay. And then working with now the current mayor, Bass, I think it's a really good conversation here, because trying to understand the processes of what happened. We know the fire happened, okay? Started in the Palisades, and then it was the Hollywood Hills and Eaton and Pasadena. But in your mind, too, a lot of blame has been placed on, Governor Newsom and also Mayor Karen Bass. Where do you sit from the inside, understanding everything that has gone on? Now, we know the fires happened, but where do you sit on that and that conversation?
Yeah, I think it's preposterous to think that the governor, let's go individually, that the governor would do anything to jeopardize the residents of California. California is the 4th largest economy in the world, as goes California, as goes the world. And I 4th largest economy in the world, with the United States being number 1. And so why in God's name would a governor who is governing the 4th largest economy in the world not give a damn about the state of California? As goes California, goes not just the world, but the United States of America. This is the melting pot of everything that's good for the United States of America. And he holds true the values and the principles of the state, and he holds it dear to his heart. And the work that he has done over the years has been extraordinary in comparison to some of the other governors of past. Karen Bass, likewise. She's a resident of the state of California, and more specifically, born and raised in the city of Los Angeles. Not only was she the speaker, the first African-American woman speaker of the California state legislature, but she's also the first African-American female mayor of the city of Los Angeles, which we call her home, and she's actually a neighbor. And so the things that I know about Karen over the years, Mayor Bass over the years, is that she puts her constituency first. You've never heard any scandal about Mayor Bass. You've never heard people say that she was looking after herself before the people of Los Angeles or the people of California. Karen Bass will stand in the middle of the street and take a diesel on before she allows anything to happen to the people of her community, particularly the people she represents. And so to hear the negative stuff in the streets about Mayor Bass is very destructive. And I think it's an agenda, basically, from my perspective, from individuals who just don't want to see, one, a Black woman do great things, and to tear down someone who is actually doing great things. I know her personally, and I know the work, the integrity. I know the sacrifices that she has demonstrated over years, not just as a Speaker of the House, but also a member of Congress and as a mayor of the city, the sacrifices that she has taken to be the mayor and be a servant, a public servant of Los Angeles.
Well, and that's interesting, too, because you got two sides of the story here, because, again, the fire itself, a lot of times when you have a natural disaster, I don't care what you do to try to prevent it, you can't prevent it. But can you prepare yourself that it doesn't spread and is not as disastrous as it could be? And I think a lot of the criticism goes back to, the governor with regards to the water rations not being there in the reservoirs or coming from the mountains to have enough water, okay, to be able to fight a fire such as this, but also not clearing the brush. A lot of the things that you hear that the governor and also the mayor being criticized over, cutting the budget of the fire department, so to speak. So a lot of those criticisms tend to come up, and you hear that on the backside of what's happened on the fire, with the fire, as far as preventative measures. These things could have been in place to help when this situation like this came up, that they would be better prepared to fight a fire such as this. So from that criticism, what do you say?
Yeah, well, you had thousands and thousands of firefighters descending in Los Angeles to fight a fire. The Los Angeles Fire Department, the LA County Fire Department collectively didn't have enough men or women on the ground to be able to fight the fire that we're still dealing with today, in some areas 20 or 30% contained. That being said, we don't control how the wind blows. When Mother Nature hits, Mother Nature hits. When the storms come, we can't control how and where those storms go. We just have to hope and pray that we're doing enough in advance from a prevention standpoint, to protect our assets, to protect the residents of our cities, and to be able to prepare for whatever comes our way. And I would like to believe that the governor and Mayor Bass, in their positions as mayor and governor, have done that. Now, the question is, could you have done more? Absolutely, you could have done more. Is there more to be done? Absolutely, there's more to be done. But the budget that we're speaking of, that was apparently cut, was a budget, from my understanding, that deals with next year's fiscal budget and did not deal particularly with last year's budget.
I got you. Okay. And so I think that's a big clarification, because that number is going to be thrown out all the time when we talk about Mayor Bass and the budget cuts and how it impacted the ability for the fire department, quote unquote, to be able to do their job, not having the right, I would say, man and resources to be able to fight this blaze. And let's put it in perspective. Let's just put it in perspective. So they're saying it was $7 million cut, $17 million.
The budget is over 100, 200, 300, 400
exactly. That's the part they leave out right there. That's the part. It's like an $850 million budget or something like that for the fire department, right?
So, right. So I don't know. Listen, $1 helps. $10 help when you're hungry, right? But in perspective, in full perspective, that carve out, that small little carve out, unfortunately, and God, we pray it would not have made that much of a difference considering the depth and the gravity of this emergent situation that we're dealing with. All things help, I get it. But as others have said, as specialists have said, as fire marshals have said across this country, when you're talking about that small little nut compared to the majority budget, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference.
All right, now let's move forward a little bit. So we know the devastating impact that the fires had. Pacific Palisades, more of an affluent neighborhood that got destroyed. Of course, I mean, a lot of residents who lived there 30, 40 years. A lot of single family homes. You had retail that got destroyed. And then you have, and I want to focus in on the area of Altadena, two different socioeconomic environments. From the Palisades perspective, that's one kind of redevelopment, okay? And then from Altadena, that's another. They're both redevelopments, but they're going to tilt in different ways.
Absolutely.
From a Palisades perspective, when you look at the redevelopment there, because the wealth is there, and again, that's not saying that because they're wealthy, they don't miss anything or they're not going through the same issues, but the rebuild there is going to be different than Altadena. How?
Well, I mean,
and let me say this. The majority of the Altadena population, which was about 44,000, you had about 18% Black, 35% Hispanic, and then you had Asians and you had Armenians and you had another mixture. So this is like American culture to its finest in this area. A lot of third, fourth generation homeowners that lived in Altadena. So I want to kind of preface that a little bit more so we understand that.
Yeah, so it's generational wealth on a lower scale in Altadena. And you have to remember now, and Altadena is the city where in 1950, African Americans were not allowed to dwell there, but to be just maids and housekeepers, et cetera, on title, okay, on title. So you also have to remember that during the Civil Rights era, Altadena was one of the few areas in Los Angeles County to be exempt from redlining, okay? Right. So that's what we're dealing with here, okay? That is not the reality in the Palisades, in the Malibu area. So the individuals who are in Altadena are of a different hue and ilk in terms of the financial and the financial strata of California. These are individuals who their grandmothers own these properties. They passed, gave it to their daughters or sons. They passed and willed it on to their kids, right? These are generational homes. The equity in these homes or their financial health and stability, if you will, is in the equity of these homes. Right. They're not sitting around with $1 million, $2 million in the bank. Their $1 million or $500,000 is in the equity of the home. So when that home is destroyed, you just can't immediately build and say, let's just rebuild and get over it. No, they're broke. And they have to now go out and apply for loans that they would not have otherwise been able to qualify for had not this fire happened. Whereas,
No, go ahead.
Whereas in the Palisades, they don't have that financial constraint that the individuals in Altadena have and Pasadena.
So the difference too is like in Altadena too, just because it is a minority neighborhood, that the aspect of the insurance, okay, if the insurance kicks in, is insured for $500 to $1 million on the home, okay, you get that money. But the reality is to rebuild that home is going to cost you 2 to 3 times that, which means that's where you have to go out and get that loan, and maybe you don't qualify for that loan, okay, and now the ability to grow that neighborhood and go back into that neighborhood is going to be virtually, not going to say impossible, but very challenging for the residents who live there for 2-3 generations. Okay, a lot of that, like you talked about, were a little bit older anyway.
Yeah, well, let's face it. I mean, the same thing happened in Jimmy. You're absolutely correct. It's the same thing that happened where my family is from in New Orleans, right? Mm-hmm. During Katrina, the same thing. The floods happened. Hurricane Katrina struck. Those families couldn't rebuild. Folks came in, bought that land, and the same folks who were displaced can't even afford to live in the house that's built there now, right? And the value of the homes have soared, and the only thing those folks can do is drive by and look at the lots that they once owned and say, I wish I can still afford that house that was on that lot. And that is the same thing that we're trying to fight right now in Altadena. Mm-hmm. And that's why on my social media platform, I said, hold, do not sell. Hold, do not sell. We have individuals. We have Ben Crump that was in town. We have my good friend, frat brother Ben Crump in town. My frat brother, Derek Johnson, who's the president of NAACP here in town. Mm-hmm. They're in Altadena today, holding press conference in town halls, making sure that the people of color who are going to struggle the most, who's going to be more adversely impacted by this, are not taken advantage of. We have the vultures already right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Circling in Altadena, in Pasadena, trying to get folks to turn over their titles and their lots to these vultures so that they could redevelop those homes and be taken advantage of.
Well, I mean, throughout the history of the United States, whether it's been a natural disaster or a planned kind of event, whether it was government, local government, whether it was vigilantes have destroyed different areas, especially minority areas, to suppress the land costs. You suppress the land costs, now you can go in, get it for pennies on the dollar, redevelop the land, and then sell it for more money, sell those lots for more money. And it seems like that's what's maybe going to happen in that area that you talked about. The Palisades is going to be the Palisades. They're going to be able to rebuild that a little bit differently, but because they have the wealth behind them, again, it's not going to be the same like it was. And don't get me wrong on that. The good people that lived there lost a lot. They lost their, but forget the house. They just lost their livelihood, their belongings. I know people that, are going through it right now, despite having money. The money is not the issue. But their community is still going to kind of be rebuilt in the way that it was before, albeit a little bit different.
Correct.
Altadena is going to look totally different. Hopefully not. Hopefully the difference is you got newer homes with residents that were living there before that can come back into the community and kind of get a sense of neighborhood again. But how does that get done with today's climate, with construction costs, with land values, with taxes here in California? A lot of people may end up with the urban flight or getting out of town or moving somewhere else, taking that insurance money somewhere else outside of that community because they can't afford it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I spoke to someone the other day who said that, their home was absolutely destroyed. It's nothing but ashes there. The insurance company will be giving them pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. They can't afford to rebuild. So they're going to take the pennies on the dollar that the insurance company is going to give them, and they're moving to Atlanta. One of their neighbors said that they're going to move to Texas, right? So they're going to give their land up, take the insurance money, and bail. Instead of just staying here, trying to figure it out, trying to work through the red tape, if you will, and see how we can, rebuild our own home, stay here, and be planted. They are saying they can't afford it because the home was given to them, passed on by their mom. When she passed, the grandfather passed it to the mom, and then the mom passed it to them. So they can't afford. Their job will not allow them to get a loan for the value, for the amount it's going to cost to reconstruct.
So is there anything from a governmental agency or local government that can be done to help offset those costs, the difference between what the insurance policy is going to pay for those lost homes and what is really affordable to those local residents?
Sure. So I do know that some banks are discussing low interest loans, reconstruction, redevelopment loans. I do know FEMA is also coming out, and I gave you, I don't know if you got it, I forwarded you some information yesterday for folks to go to get assistance for loans and for just daily care needs and essentials. I do know that in certain cities, they have what they call community development funds where cities are now giving low interest grants and grants that you don't have to pay back to help remodel and to redevelop your dwelling. And so they're doing these things in hopes that if you get some here, some here, some here, you cobble it together, you'll be able to rebuild. It's going to take some work, obviously, and that's why you have all the cities, local governments, state governments. You have Ricardo Lar, the insurance commissioner, who's also doing a workshop tomorrow, Saturday, that's going to help bring resources together to help you get through the weeds of this stuff, because you can become discombobulated. I got to go here to get $50. I got to go here to get $50. I got to go here. It's going to cost me $1.50, but $150, but I got to go here to get 50, 50, 50. You know, where do I go to get this? Who's going to help me write these, prepare these documents? How long is it going to take me to do this? Is it going to be fast track? You know, you got to go through all that with the stress of knowing that I don't have a place to lay my head right now.
Right, so, that part.
Yeah, it's compounded frustration. It's compounded frustration. So we need a one-stop shop where you have the federal government, the state government, the local government under one roof, a one-stop shop where you can go in there and you have full services of all things needed to help advance your objective here.
It's an interesting situation right now. I mean, in time frame wise, having people displaced and what that process is like. And I think you touched on something that I think people don't think about. It's the digging into the different bags or the different coffers that you have to go to. It's not a one-stop shop where you can fill out a piece of paperwork and then, okay, you're able to walk through and things are going to get melted. It's like a hodgepodge of different processes you have to go through and to be able to fill that out. And like you talked about, a lot of people are older in that area. So they don't have the bandwidth, so to speak, to be able to get to A, B, C, and D organization to get this done, or to be able to fill out or understand what it is.
Well, you look at this, you know, if this were to happen to my mom, for instance, and my mom didn't have kids, or she's just a single woman without children, my mom can't get on a computer and say, oh, go to this link, fill these documents out, upload this, upload that. My mom wouldn't know how to do that. She'd have to hire somebody or go to a public assistance place and hopefully stand in the line, a long line, to get somebody to help her do that. Upload what? How do you upload?
Yeah.
You know, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. This is the reality of what we're dealing with. And this is going to be the bottleneck effect of our communities of Altadena and Pasadena. And I just hope and I pray that we can streamline the processes to be able to get our residents back on track. I can tell you right now, I have about 15 people who have been adversely impacted by these fires. 12 of them in the Altadena, Pasadena area, and 2 of them in the Palisades. And I can tell you, it's devastating. And I don't care where you live, whether it's the Palisades or Altadena, Pasadena, pain is pain and hurt is hurt. And all of them are suffering one way or the other. Some will have it easier than others to be able to get back their footing. But the pain of it all is still there. There are certain things that money can't buy, and memories and pictures and those precious things that you just hold on to.
Personal effects. You can't get it back.
You can't get it back.
Well, I mean, and that's why I just wanted to, this week kind of talk about that in the process as we go through. We're dealing with sports all the time. We're doing a lot of stuff and get caught up into that. But me being a resident here at LA and understanding kind of the impact of what it has, especially on the minority community, there's no way I could not touch on it to kind of get an outlook on. And my thing is watching what happens in that whole redevelopment corridor out.
Oh, yeah.
Really keep an eye on it.
Yeah. You using this platform for that message is extraordinary. I was watching the game last night, and LeBron was asked about the fires, and to see the emotion on his face, emotionally shook. And then knowing in the same arena, right, emotionally shook. It's important for people to see a Jimmy Jackson, a LeBron out there, because they see you in the frame of sports, basketball, but to see you in this frame, a frame of hope, a frame of caring, a frame of love for community and destruction, it says a lot. And so for you to be in this light, I can't thank you enough for that.
No, thank you, my man. And we see each other all the time, so we'll be able to chop it up and see what's going on. And I don't know how much impact I'll be able to have, but from a real estate perspective, I always try to look at that and see, again, from the individuals who lost everything in the Palisades, heart goes out to you.
Absolutely.
To the families who are affected indirectly. You got to think about this too before we get out of here.
Yeah.
No matter if you rebuild the community, it's a different rebuild. I know they're talking about the city of Los Angeles in 2028. What was the title? The super. You know what I'm talking about? The high technology hub and corridor for Los Angeles. That was the whole goal. And so a lot of conspiracies are based around, what's going on with the fires and what's happening with the Olympics in 2028 and how this is the new city that Los Angeles wanted, but people are being affected. And when you rebuild these communities, the thing that you lose in those authentic communities is the essence, the church you went to down the street. You don't see the same neighbor, because that neighbor is not going to be there. Okay. That store that you went to, the coffee shop down the street, those little things we take so much for granted living in the neighborhood, and then it's gone. So you rebuild it. Yes.
But it's not going to be that.
Where is the root? Where is the core part of that essence of that neighbor? Because it was ingrained in their 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations. So it's gone. Can it be rebuilt? Yes. Is it going to be different? Yes.
I would tell you this: it won't smell the same.
No.
It won't. It's not going to be Mama's Kitchen.
No, that's
it's
right.
Not going to be. It's going to be a restaurant, but it's not going to be Big Mama's bakery. I'll tell you that. The art is going to be different. The nature is going to be different. The community is going to be different. So in the vein of rebuilding, of restoration, and in the vein of rebuilding and restoration, we have to make sure that we keep some of those core tenets of what makes a community, so that those who are going to stay can still feel like they're at home and they're valued. They won't be someone, as they say in the Bible, singing in a strange land, if you will.
That's right. Well, listen, my man, I truly appreciate you jumping on, because I knew that from the inside perspective on how it's viewed from the inside compared to the outside, kind of giving it and providing a little bit more context, help people understand, especially the residents here or people outside looking in, wanting to understand what the rebuild process looks like. I think you kind of gave the platform a little bit more balance, a little bit more insight, a little bit more intellect to help reassess. And then also, too, for people to keep an eye on what's happening in these different areas as far as redevelopment?
Absolutely, and I thank you. And I want to just say this: that if you live in the Pasadena, Altadena area, Pasadena City College Community Education Center is providing all type of support, disaster resources, and assistance, and that's at 3035 East Foothill Boulevard in Pasadena. And then if you live on the west side, you can go to UCLA Research Center, and that's at 10850 West Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles. And those centers are open every day from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so please go there if you need technical assistance, resources, clothing, and you name it from A to Z. They'll be able to give you some relief. And again, my prayers are with all of those who have lost their homes, lost their family members, and have lost hope.
Yeah. Ditto, my man. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right. You got it.
Yeah.
Powerful conversation. And if you take anything away from that, it's that, we're all inches away from something tragically happening, unfortunately. I don't care if you live in the Midwest where tornadoes hit, or if you're in Florida, it could be hurricanes. In the South, again, the tornadoes. It's devastating to happen. But if there's anything that you can do, any family members, anybody that you have that you can reach out to donate to the people in need, it'd be great. It'd be wholesome. It'd be something that I know a lot of people will appreciate. And the prayers go out to each and every one who has suffered through this, directly or indirectly, with family members or friends, like we all have, that have endured such a tragedy. And just think about how blessed you really are, with what you have. And sometimes, we take for granted the little things of what we do each and every day in our neighborhoods, small or big. But when something like this happens, I think it gives you a chance to reflect a little bit more deeper onto how important the little things are. And it's not just the bricks and mortars of a house, but it's the time spent with people, the memories, the memorabilia. Those things sometimes seem to don't matter until they don't matter when you don't have them. So just keep everybody in your prayers in California, Southern California, that some relief will come soon. The fires will dissipate and you can start the rebuild process. So until next week, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.